Trust. Welcome. For those who don't know me, my name's Alan Goodrow. I'm chair of this, and we've just got a short little ceremony this afternoon to unveil our new information board. And very special welcome to Madam Mayor Andy Gallagher, who's been a great supporter of us through the year. Done a fantastic job for us from Civic Day right through the whole year. So the rough sort of plan is that David Witcher, who's been very closely involved with the project, is just going to say a few words about the project, and David Glover, who was going to be here, who's got this terrific historical insight into the background to this. Unfortunately, he's got laryngitis, so I'm going to fill in a bit for him. And then I'll ask the Mayor to unveil this wonderful plaque, and we can all go in the Minster and have a cup of tea. That's the basic idea. So this may seem quite a small project, really, and it's not the biggest plaque in the world, but believe me, this has been one of the more complicated little projects to put together. So my thanks particularly to David Witcher and David Glover for doing the hard work behind all this. And David, do you just want to pick up a few words?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, it does seem remarkable, before I start, that more than 700 years ago, the manorial court was actually sitting here in Halifax. Absolutely staggering. Now, the project itself, as Alan says, seemed quite small, and so the first thing we had to do was to get permission from the council, and of course it's not the sort of thing that's going to be at the top of the legal department's list of priorities, and that did drag on quite a lot, and we have to thank Sheila O'Neill, who very kindly nudged it on after a month or two, and so we got the agreement. But having got the agreement, it was the standard agreement for much bigger projects, so 20 points on it. And so there was then a much further saga sorting out with our insurers whether we could actually meet the conditions, which finally we did. So having done that, we could then make a start on producing the information board itself. And I'm sorry David's not here, because David, I think, needs most of the credit, because he produced the photographs and the initial text, and then between us we sort of thrashed it out, got our friends at Pennine Signs to produce the sign, which they did very nicely. Now we should thank also our friends at the Council Estates Department. I don't think Lee Wigley is here. But it turned out only a few days ago that someone had managed to knock a stone off, whether they drove a car into it, whatever, and I was absolutely staggered to find out they fixed it within days. So they full marks to the council for that.
Whoa. Sorry.
Your influence.
I think the only other point, this is that there are one or two other things that could be done here. We thought we'd just keep it simple by putting the information board up, but actually when you look at it, the lower walls here actually are in need of reconstruction. It isn't just a repointing job. And when the council initially demolished the building here back in 1957, it was all covered with nice stone slabs. But of course, being Halifax, what happened? They'd been nicked. And so we are thinking about a phase 2, which deals with, in some way, replacing, putting a decent covering around it of one sort or another. So if there are any sponsors, anyone would like to contribute, we'd be delighted to hear from you. But more of that when we've put that together. And of course, we'll have to go around the whole cycle again, getting from the council. But that's all from me.
Thanks very much, David. And I mean, what I find so fascinating about this is how it crosses, Anglo-Saxon to Norman medieval history, and I mean it's that whole sort of continuum really, and it's here right in the heart of Halifax really, and you know, perhaps rebuilt a few times, but survived as late as 1957, latterly used as a workshop. David would have spoken more eloquently about the history, but he wanted me to add that he rediscovered a partial diary of an amateur antiquarian, Francis Leyland, who was around in 1848, 1849. So he found that in Calderdale archives, and he found the one-time layout of the Moot Hall, the coat of arms, and apparently it was used for the storage of ducking stools, which I understand is mentioned on the plaque. And Leyland also mentioned the ghosts of headless men tradition around here. I mean, if you went through here, you could well end up at the Gibbett actually.
Yes.
So it's not a
or
good
the
place to
ducking
be.
in the ducking stool.
Yes,
If you're
absolutely.
female, yeah.
Anyway, I think that's probably all from us. As David says, we've got to think about the maintenance of this and looking after it in the future. But I think it's now time, Madam Mayor, to do the formal bit.
Well, just before I do, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to everybody involved in this, and especially to the Civic Trust, because they're preserving our historic, everything to do with our history, and you fight so hard for that, and I thank you so much for that. So, you
Drum roll.
How do you want to do it?
right? We'll
1, 2, 3.
1, 2.
Hooray!
Everything I touch. Look if I don't touch that wall. But that's exactly
Sorry, I'll get
what
rid of the stones.
Look
before
at
you-
what it was like. Yeah. Isn't it just amazing? Preserve our culture and our
Could we have you
history
guys
like
in
this.
so
It's
we can get a
amazing. It really
photograph?
is. You're doing
Oh,
great.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,